Welcome back to Tim Kirby Russia, where I, radio talk show stand, amazing political analyst Tim Kirby, tell you about the way the world looks through a Russian lens. But I won't be alone in this because our guest, who is our first guest on the program, is back because right now he's in the Donbass war zone, and the interview we're doing with him is going to be from there. That's pretty amazing. So he's down there filming a lot of stuff. So before we get to then our guest, John Mark Dougan, you may remember that name, let's talk about some points that have to do with how the media, journalists, and both sides in the war in Ukraine can sometimes not exactly present the truth to the public. So guys, I thought what would be useful to talk about in this program? I think that I want to try to explain to you some things to take a look at in this war and a sort of a methodology in which to view the media about this war, so that way you see it from an objective lens. Now, the first thing I have to mention are translations. Translations can be good, they can be bad, but the problem is if you don't speak Russian or Ukrainian or whatever, well, they're kind of the same language, they are, then you really aren't going to be able to truly ever really be sure that the person on camera is saying what they're saying, but that's very, very hard to prove. And many times these translations are used for interviews with locals. This is probably one of the easiest things to fake. A lot of the territory of Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and even other countries, even parts of like Poland and Bulgaria and so on, tend to all kind of look similar. And so if you just sort of stick some person in front of some sort of building that's in this overall kind of style with the overall kind of landscape, they can come on there and say all sorts of stuff. These one-on-one sort of on-the-street interviews with locals are easy to fake, can be easily biased. And if you were to think about it objectively, even though you know on Tim Kirby Russia we're fans of Russia, well, if the Russians come in and they start interviewing people, do you really think that a lot of those people are going to go on camera and go, actually, no, I'm on Kiev's side. Could you please F off out of here? They're not going to say that. Again, these street interviews, I really don't recommend watching any of them. They're just too easy to fake, and the people in it might be too scared to really tell the objective truth as they see it. Now, something of a similar vein, especially in the beginning part of the war, which interestingly enough, they don't really show that much anymore, are videos showing the destroyed equipment of the other side. You know, oh, look, destroyed Russian tanks here and there, destroyed Russian artillery cannon. Well, one problem is because of their shared Soviet history, a lot of this equipment looks very similar. There definitely are some experts out there who can be like, no, that is a T-72 tank of the Russian edition, whereas the T-72 of the Polish version would look like this. And the Ukrainian edition, you know, so there's little differences between these, and experts can identify them, but the average person cannot. So one thing we definitely saw again at the beginning, where there were a lot of videos showing something destroyed, and then the Ukrainian side saying, look, we destroyed all these Russian tanks. Well, maybe you could say Russian manufactured tanks. Who they belong to, I think we all know. Another thing you should be aware of are, where are these celebrities? There have been a lot of guest visits to Kiev from various European leaders. In fact, as our one friend there on the Duran says, it seems like every leader wants to visit Kiev. It's the hot vacation spot. And also Angelina Jolie went to Lvov, also known as Lviv. Now, the thing about that is, guys, I'll tell you one thing about how the military and governments work. They never want to look bad and don't want to make mistakes, and they generally know what's going on. So the reason that there are guests in Kiev and Lvov is because there's no military action happening there. They're not going to send Angelina Jolie to some sort of frontline battle situation where she could get killed and then the Ukrainian government would look horrible. No. That's all safe PR stuff, and it's something you should be aware of. If any celebrities are doing something, trust me, whichever side it is, they feel that that is a very controlled, safe environment that they could sort of project to the public as these people heroically going to the front lines. Trust me, Angelina Jolie in Lvov, that's 1,000 kilometers away from the current front lines. She's fine. Now, in Russia, there's this one very famous photo, which I believe is actually from the 2008 Georgian War, but it's been shared by various media sources so many times to represent Russia doing something bad somewhere else that it's become, like, legendary. I hope I can find it and put it on the screen for you. But so anyways, if you see this photo about anything recent, it's not. But anyways, they're taking photos and images and film from all sorts of different places, different times, different conflicts in order to try to manipulate us and prove some other point. Even Kiev has used footage from apparently Arma 3. So, yeah, you guys, we have to try to think, okay? Now, there are some dusty parts of the steppe. There is no desert in Ukraine, okay? There's no desert, nor is there any jungle. That's something we should be aware of. And also, you don't really know what Russian sounds like, but it doesn't quite sound like Arab. So anyways, guys, those are some tips about how you can interpret information from the Ukrainian war from both sides in a way that will give you better objective reality results. But anyways, speaking of the objective reality of this conflict, let's talk to our good buddy John Mark Dougan from the front lines, or at least close to them somewhere where he's not getting killed. Hey, John, it's great to see you. So, last time I talked to you, you were in Moscow. What made you decide to go all the way down there into the middle of a war zone? What are you trying to find, my friend?
Look, I'm not specifically searching for anything except for what the truth actually is. And the truth is something that the people are not getting from the mainstream media, especially in the West, which is a shame. I had all these people writing to me, asking me what was happening, and I felt that, it was my obligation, because I'm here, to tell them what the truth is.
Well, here's one thing. The media in Russia has been well, here's a question. The media in Russia has been portraying over the last 8 years that neo-Nazi battalions have been all over the sort of Western occupied part of the Donbass, killing, forcing sexual intercourse, we'll say, torturing, laying landmines, just creating this absolute nightmare, open-air death camp for the locals. Now, have you found any information or seen anything that can confirm this view of history for us here outside of the conflict zone? And in fact, and maybe in a polite way, could you tell us some of the absolute worst things that you've seen, if anything? Maybe the Russians were lying.
Yes, it has happened, and it is still happening. These people are brutal, and the American media are supporting these individuals. I think it's very improper for our government, for the American government, to be giving money to individuals like these. And they have a proven track record of Nazism and killing people. They've been killing people in Donbass for the last 8 years. And it's something you just do not hear of in the Western media. Not only that, but they've been using people as shields. So you have these people that were in their homes, right? Russian tanks come rolling into town. The Ukrainians, they don't let the civilians leave their apartments. Instead, they force them to stay inside while they shoot at the Russian tanks. Now, what happens? The Russian tanks, they shoot back because they see a threat coming from this building over here. They think that all the civilians have been evacuated. They think it's, just these Ukrainian military individuals shooting missiles at them. And then the Ukrainian military utilizes this as propaganda to say, look, what the Russians are doing, they're shooting at civilians. Very, very dishonest information war being waged right now by the West and the Ukrainian military, or the Ukrainian government, by help of the West.
Now, you served in the U.S. military, and maybe you could perhaps enlighten us through this lens of someone who was a soldier. Is this conflict in line with what your sort of training or your expectations of combat would be? Or is there something new, different, and strange about this? So again, how does the realities of what you've seen, how do they look from the perspective of a former American military member?
Yeah, so this is kind of a new take on war, A war like this hasn't been fought since World War II. Not only that, but, anti-tank weapons haven't really been utilized very often since Well, since World War II, you know, yeah, they were used in Vietnam a bit and some other conflicts, Iraq and Afghanistan, but not to this extent. And the U.S. is funding a lot of anti-tank weapons to come here. Now, one of the problems is they are losing a lot of them, right? The Ukrainian military, they are getting captured and they are losing their javelins. So the U.S. isn't just funding these missiles to go to the Ukrainians. They are going to both sides, which America doesn't care. They just want to sell their weapons.
Now, you and I as Americans sort of bear this black mark, as they call it in Russian, the sort of, scarlet letter, as it were, because of U.S. foreign policy. You know, a lot of people can't disassociate Americans from the American foreign policy that no one in America ever asks for. So have you experienced any sort of negative blowback or skepticism or even maybe outright racism towards yourself as an American in the Donbass?
Look, I've been treated with respect and dignity from everybody I've encountered. They understand that I am not my government, that the American people are not our government. They are different from American people. They do not lump governments and people in with each other. And I can't even tell you how happy I am about that, because frankly speaking, I'm very ashamed at what the American government is doing and what they are perpetrating on not only the Russian and the Ukrainian people, but the American people as well. They're being misled by this administration. And for what? They're being misled so they can sell weapons, and they're being misled so they can protect the Biden administration and what the Biden administration has been doing in Ukraine. Now, Zelensky is going to wind up with a huge payday out of this, and he knows it. That's the reason he is willing to sacrifice so many Ukrainian troops.
Have you encountered any other foreign journalists in that region? What's their game? What are their objectives? What are they trying to show? And what's their motivations if they happen to mention them to you?
Yeah, I've encountered a lot of foreign journalists here. People from Japan, China, India, Bulgaria, France, lots of different places, right? And just no Americans. And I am scratching my head and wondering, why are there no Americans here? It's because they don't want to know the truth. The journalists here, they are real journalists on a fact-finding mission. They're going around to these places and they are seeing everything for themselves and making their own determinations. They're not acting as the mouthpiece for the Ukrainian or Russian or American governments, like the American mainstream are.
Now, one question I see coming up a lot on the internet is, what is it like living in a war zone? I mean, Mariupol has been blown up. I believe I saw a Russian report that they said that 65% of the buildings were savable. Yeah, right. I mean, there's just nothing left. So how do people who are still there, how do they survive? I mean, money, food, is there any sort of kind of employment? What has this been like? What is the experience of, going through living in the middle of a war?
Where are the people going? That's a good question. Some people are fleeing. The people in West Mariupol are fleeing west. The people in East Mariupol are fleeing east. But a lot of them are staying, and they're staying in these bombed out buildings. They're boarding up their windows. They're getting help from other locals. Everybody's chipping in with each other. Me, myself, I've brought a lot of humanitarian aid on these trips, sponsored by a lot of my friends, and a lot of my YouTube subscribers, and a lot of my people here at Oleni Park, my friends from this beautiful wildlife preserve where I call it my second home away from home. So everybody is trying to do their part, and I know maybe as a journalist, maybe I'm not supposed to, but I don't actually consider myself a journalist. I consider myself well, a storyteller. I like telling the story, but I also like being a part of the story. So this is my part of the story, is shipping in and helping these people any way I can. Because frankly, I feel guilty if I was a journalist and I go to these places and I'm getting all these stories of horror and pain and hardship, and I don't give anything back in return. I feel like I'm exploiting the people. So, yeah. But, and it's not just regular people. The Russian military is doing a lot to help people. You see humanitarian aid trucks everywhere you go. In these, and not just Mariupol, but in Melitopol, in all these other places, right? Huge amounts of humanitarian aid. You can't drive 5 kilometers down the M4 highway, which is the highway that runs between Rostov-on-Don and Moscow, without seeing Russian foreign aid trucks, Russian aid trucks. So there's a lot of humanitarian aid taking place here, and Russia is a huge part of what's going on. So I've been going around, I've been seeing the Russian forces giving out bread and food, meat, baby supplies, all this other humanitarian aid, medicine. They have huge refugee camps here in Russia, and unlike the American refugee camps where they stick the children in cages, these are basically, the Russian government is going to all these different communities saying, look, we need your hotels, we'll take whatever you can give us. And these hotels are welcoming these people, they're helping them get their lives on track, they're feeding them, they're doing really incredible stuff for these people. So it's really just an incredible thing to see. Now, on the other hand, I've heard that some of the refugees are facing real difficult times for human rights abuses and discrimination in places like Poland and other countries in the West. And I think it's abominable.
Now, one thing is, since you've been down there, John, you probably can figure out some of the motivations, the logic, the reasoning behind certain groups. Now, there are definitely maybe 4 overall sort of clusters of fighters that are down there in the Donbass. Now, could you give us some insight into the motivations behind the following groups? The neo-Nazi private battalions, the Aidar, the Azov, and so on and so forth. The sort of normal standing army of Ukraine and their recently drafted members. The Russian standing army that's participating in the conflict. And the regional armies, like the Chechens, the Ossetians, the people from Tiva, and so on and so forth, that are on the Russian side.
Can I give you any insight as to the motivation as to the following fighters? Well, yeah, the neo-Nazis, they just hate everybody. And you go into their headquarters, which we did, and it's clear that they hate everybody. And what the West doesn't understand, they hate them also. You see the liberals, they love the Azov. They think they're doing a noble thing. But the Azov, I mean, they hate the Antifa. They hate gays. They hate transgenders. They hate everybody. Now in Russia, okay, Russia, all these people are protected. Yeah, if you're a transgender in Russia, you'll probably get made fun of, no doubt. But you'll be treated with dignity, and that's for sure. Yeah, so the Azov, they just hate everybody. The others, I mean, you know, the problem in the Ukrainian military is the Azov is so deeply embedded in the Ukrainian military that they are kind of running the show. And all the regular Ukrainian military people, or the conscripts, if you will, they are trying to emulate the Azov and trying to be like these people. You know, they want to be them. And it's pretty disgusting, you know. But, you know, like I said, I mean, when I was in the Azov headquarters, I saw American weapons, American ammunition, and American military training manuals. And the left, the liberal of America, they don't understand what is actually taking place there. And I think they should know before they start giving other stuff to the Azov.
So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you like the opinions coming out of my big fat mouth, then join up on my Telegram channel. That's Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram. Link, of course, in the description.